Hi there, this is Elise Bennin, your marketing mentor. And this is the podcast for you if and only if you are ready to leave the feast or famine syndrome behind, and I mean for good. Is SEO dead? That's what everyone wants to know. We do love drama. But as today's guest, Atlanta-based SEO and AI visibility consultant Jenny Munn said in our conversation, they've been trying to kill SEO for years. But no, it's not dead. However, as with everything, it is changing. And this shift requires a reframe because what really matters, whether AI is involved or not, is being findable by the people you want to find you. That's what I call your people. So whether it's via Google search or one of the AI platforms or on a social media platform, to be findable, you have to know what language your people use to describe their needs. And that's just one of the topics we covered with Jenny, whose specialty is AI related to SEO. So listen and learn. All right, Jenny, welcome to the podcast. And please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Elise. I am Jenny Munn from Atlanta, and I am introducing myself now as an AI SEO consultant, which is new the past few months. I used to just say I am an SEO consultant and trainer, and I help marketers learn how to do SEO so they can do it for their organization, as well as I have a few retainer clients that I'm their in-house SEO person for. So.
Yeah, I noticed that you had adjusted your title or your elevator pitch to include AI. I thought that was interesting. We're obviously going to talk a lot about that. And is it just you in your business?
It is. It's just me and my trusty assistant, ChatGPT. Yes, best assistant I ever had. Yep, I've been a solopreneur for 15 years now for my own business. When I say I'm Jenny with JennyMunn.com for 15 years now.
Excellent. All right. And give us a little background about you and just the evolution of your business model, because I imagine you didn't start this way.
Yeah, I've evolved quite a bit, but I do feel like when people are like, oh, what are you up to these days? I'm like, same old, actually, but I started out in about 2008-ish. I had just had my first son, and I knew I wanted to control my own schedule, and I could pick him up off the school bus at 2:30. And I would work early in the mornings and weekends to make that happen. But I was researching what I wanted to do. And I was like, you know what? I think I really want to be a blogger. Blogging was kind of new at that time. And upon doing that, I found someone named Peter Bowerman, who was a copywriter. And that really kind of took my background when I had worked for companies in sales and marketing and my love for writing and put those together. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be a freelance copywriter now. And I put up my little website, JennyMunn.com. I taught myself WordPress. And I went to meetups, free meetups, because I had no money, right? I just thought I'd start my own little business, my little freelance business. And I met a business owner, and he paid me $75 to write 2 press releases. And I went back to my office and I wrote those. And then I sat there and was like, okay, bring on the next client, and I waited a while. And then finally, I feel like a couple months later, after I tinkered with my website and changed my writing around and the banner and everything, and my husband was like, so are you going to start bringing in any money, or maybe think about going back to get a job so we can have health insurance? Because he was independent also. I was like, okay, I guess I need to figure out what I need to do to bring in clients. So I started going out more. I started talking to people and business owners about how they hired copywriters. And they said, well, I went to Google and I Googled Atlanta copywriters. And I just kind of reached out to the couple who were at the top. And so it's like, okay, well, then I need to figure out what to do to get myself to the top. And in the meantime, I would go out and meet people. I went to a lot of freelance events and
lots of networking, obviously.
Lots of networking. Mm-hmm. Referrals were my best source of revenue and getting clients, because I met people who had been freelancing for a while and they would refer business to me because they were too busy or they wanted bigger fish. And so other copywriters were my best source of referrals. And, again, I just grew to love our colleagues and ourselves and like really adopt the mindset that there really is enough business out there and we can all help each other. And then when people started asking me, so I did copywriting. I love copywriting is absolutely like my heart, what I love the most. But when people started asking me how I got to the top of Google, because I started getting really busy with leads who were finding me, they said, well, can you teach me how to do that? So I was like, I can. So I went from copywriting to SEO copywriting to then finally doing all the things as SEO got less technical, because I am a very much non-technical person, as you guys will find out later in the AI part where I talk in very non-technical terms about it. I am not technical, but with CMSs and WordPress and the ability to put a title tag and a meta description into a plugin so you don't have to know how to code, like that became where SEO really opened up to non-technical people who were good at good writing and knowing who your audience is. And so that's how I got into SEO consulting and then training. I love teaching people what I know. And then finally, adopting the last evolution recently is adopting the AI part of it all.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Interesting. I mean, you've mentioned networking and you were part of my coaching groups early on. So you know the three tools of the simplest marketing plan: outreach, content marketing, and networking. As you perhaps have noticed, I never talk about SEO. And there's a reason. A part of it is, and I'd love to get your take on this before we go into more detail about SEO, but I really feel like for service providers, creative professionals, copywriters, designers, coaches, consultants, it's better to choose who you want to work with and go after them versus waiting for ones to find you, because I have also found that the people who find you are not necessarily the best quality, the highest quality prospects. So what do you think of that? Maybe from the point of view where you were coming up early on as the Atlanta copywriter, but how and if that has changed now?
Yeah, and I always love debating this with you because I remember a couple of years ago when I was in your group, we kind of talked about it a little bit too. And my mind is it's not an either or, it could be an and. I got one of my best clients early on, who's still one of my clients, through LinkedIn because he typed in something about SEO Atlanta consultant and found me on LinkedIn. And so to mention also, at one point, my Google leads started dropping. And especially that is when Google decided to take the paid ads that used to be on the side and put them at the top. And that pushed all the organic listings down. And then here comes freelancer.com and all these other websites that get above the independents. I started getting more leads through LinkedIn than I did through Google, right? But again, I didn't look at it like, well, SEO is dead. I looked at it like, well, I definitely need to be visible here. But to me, it's just something to supplement. I still very much believe in it for creatives. And then when people would get to your website or land, if they were to type in something, I feel like it's a no-brainer to kind of do the one-time work that's required to like optimize yourself. And then while you're doing all this great work, people can be finding you. And I do think the language on your website and who you say you work with will qualify people in or out. And they might still reach out to you, but then you could pass them along to a colleague or somebody else. And so in my mind, SEO, even if it's not the most qualified person, is not wasted. I still like what you say, people, referrals, or when you meet someone at a networking event, right? Those are great referrals too, but I've gotten some amazing leads with SEO. So I really think it could be both. Now, SEO does require a like one time and some ongoing work, right? Which can be kind of a pain. That's why a lot of people, creative professionals, choose not to do it. But I think it could be both.
Interesting. Good. So that big question that you've mentioned, is SEO dead? Because here we are at the end of July 2025. For people who are listening in the future, we'll see if it's dead. But, AI is on the rise, and there's a lot of talk about it overtaking the Google results. Where are you with that these days?
Yeah, such a good question. And, I have been like sitting and observing all of this happening for a year. I kind of stopped my training because I felt like I wasn't qualified to train up. Like nobody knows what's going on right now. But I do feel like we're at a point where I can comfortably talk about it again, like to make sense of it. So everybody's always tried to kill SEO and we all laugh about it, right? Like everybody's always trying to kill SEO and I get it, right? Most people do want SEO to die and are like rooting for SEO to die. I think part of it is because of the very shady past of the black hat SEO and doing the bad things. And again, like I didn't even know, even if I wanted to, I didn't even know how to do that because that took like the technical guys, figuring out how to game the system, a lot of it. Things have changed. And what has really changed is that a significant and growing number of people are not using Google anymore. They are turning to these AI platforms. And so people are like, well, Google is synonymous with SEO. And so SEO is dead. But how I truly look at SEO is the art, the science and the art and the discipline of being findable. And so if you truly look at it, like how do I bridge the gap of what my audience is searching? What are their pain points? What are their dreams? What is the known in their mind? And then here's an organization and here's how they're presenting their products and services. And how do you bridge that gap? I truly feel like that's what SEO does. It helps bridge the gap between what people are looking for, people's pain points, talking about COVID and the pandemic have changed so much. If your business didn't keep up with the new needs and the pain points and the new, it used to be free shipping. That was the big thing. And then it turned into fast shipping, right? So it's about keeping your language updated based on what your audience wants. And so to me, that is never going to die. The platforms might shift and change, right? But to me, you need to be findable, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Google, whether it's in Gemini or ChatGPT or Bing. I mean, again, to me, I'm hoping it's not, well, I want to be found in ChatGPT. Hopefully it is everywhere, right? Of course, you can't do all the things, you do need to prioritize. But to me, the discipline of doing the things it takes to be findable, like how is that going to die? Like I truly believe it. And I do think that's what comes from great marketing and great copywriting principles of knowing who your audience is, where they are, and showing up.
I love that. Just the idea, like extrapolating the idea of being findable as opposed to search being inextricably associated with Google, right? Being found on Google. And you did mention LinkedIn a couple times, especially that's where someone found you. So let's just take a little tangent to talk about search on LinkedIn because I think it's horrible, right? From a searcher's point of view, it's like, I don't know. It never feels satisfying. So I'd love to hear your take on search on LinkedIn.
That is so funny. And I guess from the point of view that I don't do a lot of search on LinkedIn, right? I don't necessarily need to hire someone. I'm not looking for peers. I don't need to go out and look for clients that way, although I certainly could. I haven't found anyone lately who has necessarily found me on LinkedIn. Have I? And said, I mean, I do get a lot of LinkedIn invitations, but unless there's like a personal invite there, I ignore it. So if it is a lead, I guess I wouldn't even know it, although maybe they, chime in. I just think that that's where your audience is. It just makes sense that you use the language that they might type in. And in LinkedIn, there is a feature where you can see what did people type in to land on your profile. Like it makes sense to look through there. I saw a lot of search engine optimization consultant, right? So to certainly know what are people typing and is there a fit? And so again, I just think it's one of those things that it makes sense to optimize your profile to know who, this is the whole thing behind SEO too, is the who behind a search, right? Who are you trying to attract? What is their language? And then just make sure that's in there and to try to be findable. So I don't put a whole lot of effort into it, but once you do that and you kind of adopt that mindset, who are you trying to reach? It just becomes a lot easier to target. What I was also going to quickly mention that the past few years, social has become such a huge search engine, right? We know younger generations are using search. They don't go to Google, they go to TikTok SEO, right? Like I talk to my kids and they all go to TikTok, right? Instagram is anything with I used to say anything with a search bar is a search engine. So traffic has been drying up from Google over the past few years. So most people go to, I mean, not most, young audiences go to social. And that's why, again, search, the whole concept is being everywhere. But for us service providers, it is great to just be visible if someone is looking.
And that question of who sounds super simple, but it's not, obviously. And a lot of people, not anyone in this room with us today, of course, but a lot of people who might be listening, we're basically saying you need to know your niche. You need to choose who you want to work with. And that becomes an obstacle. And I've actually been teaching people how to use AI to remove that obstacle. But here we're talking about, using search once you have removed that obstacle. And I totally agree. It's really important to decide who at least you're trying to attract, not these are the only people I will work with. So I don't know, is part of your work to help people figure out the who?
That is figuring out the who. Usually, when people come to me, they do tend to know who they want, but their language doesn't reflect it. Like what we always say is that, like, you think of this is a copywriting thing, but like a megaphone. Most 99% of companies I work with, they are so inside their own business. They're just like using a megaphone to like shout out, here's what I do, and here's our services, and here's how I help you, and here's what I call my services, and this is what I want to tell you. Instead of when you flip around the megaphone, it's listening to the words and the language and everything the audience is saying and then reflecting that back to them. And so, most businesses kind of know who in general, but we can certainly use SEO to like dig in to find out, well, let's search on those keywords you think and here are the businesses that are coming up. Like, is this really who you, so we can refine it a lot, but a lot of what I do is what I call like saving companies from themselves, right? And just like knowing the who, like you cannot succeed in SEO. And this has been this way for 10, 15 years. If you don't, the better you know your audience, the better SEO you're going to have, the better marketing you're going to have. Like knowing who you want to attract is SEO 101. And that's really, I feel like, the bulk of what I do to help customers. And it's like, still to this day, the mismatch of the keywords and the language of the audience, it still blows my mind how we're getting back to such 101 basics that the company and people who we're helping have forgotten that. Like they've forgotten, they just want to say what they want to say in the language and the words and call, and it doesn't work that way. So
it's so interesting. And I love the megaphone metaphor of turning it around. That's beautiful. I may have to borrow that.
And it's not mine. It's from, I think, Karen Thaxton, who I've had so many copywriting and wonderful marketing mentors over the years. And it just like, those things like stick with you, right? Like, because it's such mistakes people make.
All right, let's talk a little bit about AI as it relates to search then. And as always, I like to start with definitions. And I gave you a few that I've heard of, but you're welcome to define any of the ones that you think are important. But I keep hearing about AI mode on Google, Search GPT. Someone said LLMO the other day, AIO, AEO, GEO. Like, explain, please, as Ricky Ricardo used to say.
I will. And I laugh because I'm always like, E-I-E-I-O, like, like the song, like it is like stupid how many acronyms there are now. And when you said Search GPT, I literally went and I Googled it because I'm like, what is that compared to just these other GPTs? So like, I am still Googling some of these things. One of the biggest problems right now that I think SEO is facing is that, and this is me and I haven't had a soapbox because I've just been so overwhelmed and trying to like soak in all of this AI stuff, right? And just trying to keep up while trying to do my day job of client work, right? It's hard.
No, but get up on your soapbox. Go ahead.
Yeah, that the acronym SEO has to evolve into something else, right? The discipline of making yourself findable, because when you go to ChatGPT or Gemini, you're not doing a search. It is called prompting, right? Because you're doing a command, you're summarizing, you're doing an action. I don't go to ChatGPT like I'm going to go search this. Like sometimes I want information, like what is search GPT. I could have easily gone to Chat GPT.
I wondered why you didn't, right? Why did you go to Google for that?
Because I turn, personally, and this is something where I have very carefully been watching my own actions of when do I used to put up Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini. I used to do this Google, and I would for months I would do the same search in all four platforms to truly try to understand how they were all different. And then I gave up after a while because that is a lot of work, and who's got time for that? But I still, I guess by habit, right? When I go to ChatGPT, I want to like get stuff done, and I am talking to my handy assistant, and I want to I'm there for serious business. When I want quick information, I go to Google because I know I'm going to get the AI overview, which is basically, if you guys remember the term featured snippets, which is when Google started placing a snippet of content at the top of search results, and people went into a tizzy about that, right? This is just like the next evolution. This is like the snippet on steroids. I know if I go to Google, I'm going to get like a quick information. Like I'm just going to get the little highlight I want, versus I do feel like when I go to Chat GPT, it's so verbose. I'm like, just give me, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to type, give me the super quick, like just what is it, right? So I will go to Google for quick little things a lot of times.
That's really interesting though, that idea, because I hear people calling the GPTs or the AIs like an answer.
Yeah.
You're looking for an answer as opposed to a thing, a product, a resource.
Yes.
But I like that distinction between I want a little or I want a lot.
Well, and what one of your acronyms was AEO, Answer Engine Optimization, right? So AEO is Answer Engine. AIO is Artificial Intelligence Optimization. GEO is Generative Engine Optimization. So everybody is calling all of these things, all of these different terms, and it's very fragmented right now. But what it is still kind of is, it's all about optimization, right? Everybody is
There's an O in all of them.
Yes, everybody's like, oh my goodness, my audience is flocking over to AI. I need to optimize myself to get into there. And that is absolutely the wrong way to think about it, first of all. But going back to, gosh, one of your questions was about search. So the word search SEO cannot apply, I don't think. I think it's like a misnomer then with what we do. And so we have to evolve the word SEO. But what is it going to be? Is it going to be, I think another acronym you had thrown out was LLMO, LLM optimization, right? So LLM, SGE, search, right? Like these are all acronyms that kind of describe the whole, like what these tools are now. It's like either the model behind it or the actual tool itself, but it is very confusing and overwhelming. And I think that there's no like standard glossary that we can all use. Like we don't all have the same language right now. So with SEO, all of these agencies are coming out now. I do SGE services, and I'm going to help you get to the top of ChatGPT. And it's not like that. So it's a little bit, I feel like we're in like the dark days of SEO again, when people are promising they're going to get companies to the top of ChatGPT, and that just is not how it operates. So it's everywhere.
Yeah. And I mean, the common thread, though, is the O, the optimization, which I'm thinking is what you said about being findable, right? Just making sure you're findable.
It is, but you can't keyword stuff your way into these AIs, right? Or what I call LLMs. So like AI is like the very broad umbrella, right? LLMs are the tools. Search generative, the SGE, search generative engine, is where text comes back. So an AI could be that they do the like Midjourney, they do the graphics. There could be AI that creates video for you. Like the SGE is where it replies text back, and it does great images now too. But so an LLM is basically like those tools. Again, like I don't talk semantics because I kind of use different words synonymously as well. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Now, what was your question? It was about optimization. No, optimization. It's more about, you cannot keyword keyword your way into those, right? They are way too sophisticated. They are way too smart. They are going to surface brands. And that's what every SEO now is scrambling to understand. Well, how do they surface brands and companies? And when do they do that? And I look at my own queries. I will kind of prompt things and to see our companies coming up. I feel like I very rarely ever see companies come up. That's the whole other thing. When I'm in ChatGPT, unless I'm like doing a search for like a trip and I'm finally at the stage where I want very specific companies or information or tours, then it'll provide. Like I was looking for SAT versus ACT to understand for my son, who's a rising junior. I'm like, oh, which one should he take? Right. So I went to ChatGPT to help quickly understand the difference. And then at one point, it finally got to the point where I said, hey, you're in East Cobb. Here are some companies in East Cobb that do that. And they were some of the exact same ones that I had already been seeing people recommend on Facebook, or I had seen them in Google. But it took a long time to get to that point before I actually saw companies displayed. That's the other thing too. So you can't optimize, you can't force ChatGPT to cite you or to mention you if that's not what it means. So it's more about right now, you can influence and you can try to do what it takes to get mentioned when they start mentioning companies, but they're not. I talk about these AIs like they're people, right? But they're not going to mention you unless they think it's the right time to do that. So it's tough. We're also trying to figure that out, who gets mentioned and why and where. And we do have some best practices that we're trying to tell people and work with companies to do, but it's the Wild West right now a little bit.
And what are some of those best practices, Jenny?
Yes. So one of the things that you mentioned, well, FAQ, right? And I'm still a believer that anything you do that's good for your audience is going to be good for a search engine. It is going to be good for an AI. AI loves comparison content, right? So you think like, what's the best website CMS? Is it Shopify? Is it WordPress? Well, let's compare it, right? So because these AIs are looking to like extract and find information, and they will pull from sources, right? They might steal the information, but at some point they know it's you. So it's a lot of what we've been saying are SEO best practices. You have to have a website that is crawlable, where the AI, the bots can crawl through the back end of the code. So a fast loading website, it's clean. You don't have super huge images where your website takes 20 seconds to load, because no AI bot, no search engine bot's going to take the time to do that. So a good best practice for a modern website that's clean and fast, there's something called schema, structured markup, which is kind of code in the back end saying what type of organization you are. So it is taking a little bit of technical stuff to kind of what we call mark up your content so the bots can read it and understand what type of business you are. And then being an authority in your space. And again, I feel like I when I explain this, it's nothing that's like crazy or brand new, right? Being an authority in your space, owning your expertise. A lot of what AI is looking for is for what you say to be corroborated out there on various known websites. That's why everybody says, oh, are you on Reddit? Are you referenced in something in your industry? Are you in LinkedIn? Like, is what you're saying corroborated and validated by outside external sources? But that was like SEO too, right? Where 50% of how well you rank was how are you doing away from your website? And do other sources also back you up? Do you have those backlinks and mentions, right? Because you cannot live in your own little bubble and not ever be referenced by the outside world if you're ever going to get ranked or displayed.
And it sounds like you're talking mostly about content marketing then, right?
Yes, a large part is content marketing. However, if your website is taking 20 seconds to load, no matter how great your content is, it's probably not going to be crawled, right? Or you could have great content, and I think it will speak for itself. And you will, I mean, hopefully you are promoting it and have some kind of a network. Like you're part of an industry where you're just not blogging all day long in a bubble, So you do have to be a great business or brand doing good things. Now, for us service providers, that's not going to be us necessarily, right? Like we can't be all out there, but I love how you teach, right? Like you're getting out there and you're owning your niche. And that's what I think 50% of the battle is, like claiming your niche and who you want to work with. And then your world expands and this will be picked up, right? Like how else would ChatGPT have known these tiny little tutoring companies based on where I am, right? So having your niche and your knowing your people and knowing your world is, I mean, most of it.
And one question that's coming to mind is something that's been coming up a lot lately, which is whether I feel like I know how you're going to answer this, but I still want to ask you, do you need a website? Because a lot of people, especially people who are just starting their business, the website is not necessarily, it takes a long time to get it done and it's not usually finished. And there are a lot of perfectionists out there, so they don't really put it up, even if it's imperfect. And lately I've been saying, especially if you're a service provider and you're doing a lot of marketing on LinkedIn using the 3 tools of the simplest marketing plan, then maybe you don't need a website. But what do you think, Jenny?
So I keep going back. So I see what you're saying. And in some ways, that kind of sounds nice to have to, especially giving up any expenses related to that, or your website breaks again or something, it gets hacked into, right? But you can't let your whole presence, I don't think, be 100% on a domain or property or platform that you don't own or control. Because who's not to say that some billionaire might take over LinkedIn and gate things or make you pay for it, or something might go away. So you still have to have your home. Whether like you don't need to maybe blog as often as you did, maybe you need to like have a presence on LinkedIn, even if it's a one-page website, I still think you need to own something, right? Even if most of your time is spent on LinkedIn, I still don't think you should ever put all of your eggs in a basket from one of these social media giants. I think it's risky.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I would modify my advice lately to say, don't worry if you don't have it yet, but work toward it so that you can get the marketing going. Don't let it be the obstacle. I have several clients who, are not marketing themselves yet because their website isn't done. And I think that's a mistake.
Oh, I absolutely, again, I'm like, I wish I could go back to, I think about this sometimes. Should I just let go of everything I've done and start with a one-page website for this kind of AI evolution, right? Because a lot of my blogs and a lot of my content, I was like, it's outdated. I talk about SEO best practices from my blogs. I loved blogging over the past 15 years, right? But it didn't reference AI at all. All of my checklists, all of my ebooks, all of my trainings, everything I put together is now irrelevant, because if it doesn't touch on the latest SEO best practices, then forget it. Let me just scrap and start over and have a one-page website, right? So I even thought about that for a moment. And then I was like, well, I can't let go of all my stuff, right? But yes, nobody should have to wait.
Can't you get AI to insert the phrase AI strategist in everything?
You could. That sounds a little keyword stuffing, but no, I don't think not having a website would ever stop you from getting a client. So if someone says, and they're just living in, I know your world, which is, I don't know, perfectionism or something else. So not having a website should not stop you from going out to try to get business. It's just, you don't want to build your whole freelance or consulting, service providing world on top of a platform you don't own.
Right. I would agree with that. All right. Good. All right. Well, here's a question. If you serve multiple markets that are very different, how do you optimize and make yourself findable to each of those markets? And I would add, like, how many is too many? Is a landing page still the best way? Do blog posts help this? So you've kind of referenced this a little bit in the last few minutes, but what would you say to that question?
Yeah, so I absolutely think that if you have multiple markets, like I do have education clients find me by the keyword, because I can see it in my Google Search Console, stuff around K-12 SEO or SEO for K-12 education, right? And they land not on my homepage, but on my specific services page. But I also have portfolio or case studies, I should say. I've got case studies and they point back to that services page. I've got blog posts I've got this one again, it's outdated now, but it's about Facebook ads for K-12, because I was talking about some best practices that were 4 years ago, right? And people find that blog post all the time and they'll follow that link to my services page, right? And they'll kind of see that I work in K-12. So having what you call a landing page or a page dedicated to your industry, right? But it's not just like, you can't put up 10 pages. I think that that's really hard to do as a solo consultant or a small agency, right?
I think AI should be able to do that for us.
AI I could do that, but you just have to be careful of AI generic content that's not going to like drag your whole site down, because your whole site now is going to sound like a robot. So I'm a fan of AI content, but not when it's like, well, you know this, and we would all listen. This like goes without saying to your world and to you, but mass-produced generic blog content is not going to win anyone over. It's
Right.
certainly help you for sure, but I do think having a dedicated page for your, and talking about your, why are you in that industry? What is your experience? What clients? Like I'll put my education client logos on that. I do have e-commerce. I've got case studies that they all link to each other, and I've got those logos and that talk there, right? So, I was part of these industries, NACE and EdNet and whatever. I talk about those on their dedicated pages. If I had 20 industries, that'd be really hard to show my expertise, but I have 2. And so it does make it easier the more you niche.
All right. One last question, Jenny. I would love to know the most important lesson you've learned, whether it's about your business or the services that you offer, but just share that with us if you would.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a hard question. I definitely think the ability to filter and kind of stay the course has been really key, because I have sat like for the past year, again, I've just been trying to absorb all of this AI and keep up with all the trends happening and keeping up. And I'm like, I'm so worried I'm going to fall behind. But at some point I'm like, okay, I've got to move on. I've got to claim my take in this space and move forward and stop trying to keep up, because it does, like every day there's something changing, right? And so I do feel like our ability to like at some point filter right now and know what's important and who's important, and go back to like keeping my eye on the ball and who I'm trying to serve and what do they need, not with the whole world. I said on a webinar I had no business being on, about how to go to these super technical websites and create these chatbots. And after I'm like, I'm not technical. I feel like I need to keep up and know what this is, but I actually don't need to. So I feel like right now being able to, what I call use your peripherals, like stay focused, but at the same time, like know what's going on is important, is really important right now, because it's so overwhelming, right? Like it's like debilitating almost, right now. So I think keep staying the course and using your peripherals is going to be key right now.
I love that. I mean, I always think focus is the key anyway, but especially when there's so much going on and it's the hardest to be focused because you just don't know which direction. But you just have to trust your gut, basically, and make a decision and then change later if it's the wrong decision.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, tell the people where they can find you online, Jenny. Spell it out for us.
I am at jennymunn.com. And right now I tell people, I would love for you to follow me on LinkedIn or join my newsletter, because I am sharing, if you care about AI, so that's what I say is AI related to SEO. Like that is my space. I'm trying to teach people how, what to do and how AI relates to SEO. So if you're trying to keep up with SEO and now you need SEO and AI are together now, right? You can't talk about SEO anymore if AI is not a part of it. Find me on LinkedIn or jennymunn.com.
Awesome. And that's Munn with 2 N's.
Yes, correct.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. This was so much fun.
Jenny had so much great info to share, and I especially love her advice to stay on top of what's changing without being overwhelmed by it. I know, easier said than done. But that is a best practice for sure if you plan to survive this exciting but unknown future. And if you want my help figuring it all out, I hope you'll take advantage of my free mentoring session. You can find that and lots more resources, including my simplest marketing plan at marketing-mentor.com. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.